you, Father Luke, all of you for coming tonight in this inclement weather. I feel at home already because the first storm, Sandy, that's my wife's name. And the second one, Athena, that's my sister's name. So hopefully none of the other relatives will show up. That's Father Free. Behold, I say to you, lift up your eyes. Look at the fields, for they are already ripe for harvest. This text, taken from the Gospel of John, has very meaningful application to the situation that we find ourselves now with the coming of the Mayan people into the Orthodox Church. We are really in a turning point in history for these people, and maybe for Orthodoxy, especially in Latin America. We know the story how Jesus talked to the woman at the well, and how the people came dressed in white to come and see him, and to discover him and see him as their Savior. Here's an example of some of the people that we encounter. This is in one of the villages that we visited at Todos los Santos. And they remind me of those people from Samaria. There are many cultural, linguistic, and even religious barriers to be crossed, as was the case with Jesus and the Samaritans, because they were a different group. They were not in communion with the Jews. They were outcasts in relationship to the Jews. And we know that most of the scriptural references to the Samaritans at that time were always kind of negative. But what I'm here to make a case for is for us to understand who these people are, and hopefully, at the end of my presentation, and that of Father, which I will segue into him, because he's really the real impetus behind this. And I'm only just taking a small part of what is happening here to share with you my experience as an American, as an Orthodox priest, of what's going on in Guatemala. The important thing is that my feeling is, and it's always been my feeling, when I think of the gospel, I think of it being for all people. I truly believe it cannot be contained by any one expression of it. It would not be fair for us to expect the Guatemalans to become Greeks or any other ethnic identity. The Guatemalans need to be Guatemalans. They need to live authentically in the culture that they have grown up in, rather than us coming in with an agenda in terms of trying to make them into something that they are not. So that's the first thing that I want to say. And Father is very sensitive to this, Father Giron, and I will say more about him. The people that I have been working with are part of a social movement that sprang forth in the midst of a civil war as a cry for land reform. They are led by Father Giron, who is with us, and we are very honored to have him here tonight. And as Father Luke said in the introduction, not only was he a priest, he was also a senator, an ambassador to the UN, and he is now the head of the Guatemalan Orthodox Church, the real leader of the church. There's no one else. We may have a hierarchy, but the hierarchy is not in Guatemala. They are in Mexico. And I'll speak more to the visit of the hierarchy. Of course, we are under the protection of the ecumenical patriarchate. But the important thing to realize now is Father Giron is the one that put the foundation in place for this church. I met him for the first time over 3 years ago at an orphanage, the Hogar Rafael Ayao. He sought me out as a representative of the Orthodox Church and as a representative of the Orthodox Christian Mission Center. And it was his desire to enter canonical orthodoxy. Up until then, the only canonical community in Guatemala was the one located in the city at the orphanage. And that was at the Hogar Rafael Ayao with Mother Inez and the other sisters. And recently we had the opportunity to meet with them, and actually we ordained 3 of the priests at the beautiful Orthodox Church at Lake Amatitlan. Fantastic place with beautiful iconography. You know, it's a pearl, it's a gem when you see it there. But we ordained 3 of our priests there when Archbishop Athenagoras came to us. So Mother Inez was the one that had the witness of the Orthodox Church with the children there and the orphans. How many have ever had the opportunity to visit Guatemala? Oh, wonderful. I see quite a few of us here. We know that when you go to that orphanage, you can't leave without really being greatly moved by what she has done there. And as a matter of fact, some of the children that were at the orphanage are now living with us, with Father Andres, who has become their father now, and he's caring for them. The older boys live with Father Andres, and he is their father, their leader, their mentor, and then we've had a wonderful experience with those boys. They are also an excellent choir. So when we go to the villages, the boys from the Hogar, they are a choir, and they are teaching the Guatemalan priests to sing the Orthodox hymns. And when we go into the villages, they also show the other people in the villages, the parishioners, something of the feel of the Orthodox Church. So we've been very blessed, truly blessed. And for us, those boys have been angels. So today, we are seeing something happen in Central America, particularly in Guatemala, a rapid growth of the Orthodox Church. Today, this rapidly growing church counts its faithful in the hundreds of thousands, spread throughout over 300 Mayan villages in Guatemala and southern Mexico. There are 52 parishes of this group in southern Mexico. So we need them in Chiapas. This church has its own seminary, it has its own schools, it has its own mission center, it has farms, it has 3 gas stations, 2 of which are named after the Theotokos. So if you want to get gas, you should go to the Theotokos. And they have a cadre of dedicated catechists and a corps of itinerant priests who have traveled over dirt roads by SUV, horse, mule, or on foot to meet the spiritual needs of their widely scattered flock. Over the past 6 months, I have lived among them, visited their villages, shared their struggles, seen their challenges, and conveyed to them the support of the Orthodox faithful in North America. They are very grateful for this, but I can only tell you how much they appreciate the very little that I have done, and how much we could do if more of us were so moved as I was, and I hope that that will be the case in the near future. But wherever I have gone, I have received overwhelming response from the people. This is a slide of children from the Orthodox school posing with Archbishop Athinagoras of Mexico, who is the hierarch assigned to Guatemala. And these children had just performed the typical Mayan dance at the school, and then they posed with the Archbishop. During this time of my visit, I have been transported by an SUV to places of unimaginable tropical beauty along winding mountain roads that thread their way through smoking volcanoes and steamy jungles. While the main roads are paved, but not always well maintained, it is the bumpy dirt roads off the main highway that bring back memories of travel through remote villages in Africa. It is in such places that we spend most of our time, meeting the people in the villages and parishes, many of whom only speak their native dialect. As different as their languages are, their manner of native dress is even more exotic. The women, for example, care for their children and dress them in such a way that they retain the culture and the customs of the people. All the women dress in their Mayan outfits. The women still wear skillfully woven multicolored blouses and wrap-around skirts that reach the ankles. They do this to stay connected to their past. As the women, they are the main conservators of the Mayan tradition. It is as though I have traveled back in time to the arrival of the conquistadores 500 years ago. That's what it's like to go to Guatemala. What was it like when the Spanish came? Go to Guatemala. The real Guatemala is in the mountains. It's in thousands of villages where these people live, try to eke out a living. These are the people the Father has been a voice for in his country. Very impressive indeed. That being said, it should be pointed out that many mission groups have invaded these areas since 1871. At that time, President Rufino Barrios invited Protestant churches in Guatemala. Barrios was a Mason, and he had no use for the Catholic Church. So he invited the Protestants to come in. However, because of 36 years of civil war, the presence of these missions diminished in the contested areas. And so, with no place to call their spiritual home, many Mayans joined their fellow villagers and placed themselves under the leadership of Father Andres. And as has been pointed out by Father Luke, at the frequent risk of his own life, he has passionately lobbied for the land reform that ultimately has benefited his people. But we still have a long way to go. Here is a slide of Archbishop Athenagoras with Father Andres. This is a very significant icon, because what is happening here is that the leader of the church in Guatemala is joining hands with the representative of the Ecumenical Patriarchate as a unified whole. This is the church reaching out to the people of Guatemala. And so for me, it's a very meaningful icon, a vision of what the church can become and will become. As we enter the mountain villages, I have to tell you about the way the people receive us. We are greeted with great ceremony by loud mariachi-type music or marimba bands, wherever we go. The people of these villages are very musical. They love to sing. They love to dance. They clap. And they hug you and kiss you, every single one of them. You can't go into a Mayan village and just get a cold handshake. It's never, because that would not be acceptable. You have to hug and kiss everybody. Women, men, babies, whatever. It's the way it is, Guatemala. That's Father for you. So they always give you a procession when you go to church. They wait for you outside of the church, and then they march you in with the bands. In fact, we had a caravan of about 50 vehicles, SUVs, pickup trucks, vans, that escorted us a few miles to the village of Todos los Santos, All Saints, with people in every vehicle. And in the lead vehicle, there was a man announcing the coming of the Archbishop and Father Andres and the priests from the various parts of the Central American eparchy. And people were standing along the roads and wondering what was going on, and they were announcing the coming of Orthodoxy into the land of Guatemala. It's incredible. The ancient church, founded on the day of Pentecost, was coming in all of its glory to come to the little town of Todos los Santos, the church of the martyrs, of the missionaries, of the unmercenaries, of the mystics, coming in all of its power to the humble village of Todos los Santos. Wow. What an experience, Father, right? So their happiness at seeing us was genuine. You know, they would burn incense, and they'd incense us, they'd throw flowers on us. They had these signs. They had the youth groups had the pom-poms, and they were cheering like it was a basketball game or something. It was incredible. And when they would greet us, you know, it would not be just a normal greeting. The women would get on their knees to kiss our hands. We were so humble. We would cry. We felt so unworthy. How could this be? How could people receive us with so much love? You know, our Orthodox people are very loving, to be sure. But at the same time, we've never seen anything like this. So come and visit us. You'll see for yourself. Wherever we go, various groups within the village greet us with traditional Mayan dances. This is the village of Montellano, and the school children were dancing the Mayan dances as a way of welcoming Father Andres for that particular visit. And as we said before, they go to great pains to maintain their culture. This is really very important to them. Each village is guided by a council of elders whose local laws supersede even that of the Guatemalan government. Disputes are resolved within the community by the elders. While each family owns a parcel of land, they are part of a co-op into which they pool their resources and their crops for improvements in the village and to pay off the loan that was secured for them by Father Andres so that they could buy the property. Since the beginning of the movement, as was stated earlier, over these last 25 years, Father has helped his people build 44 villages. And you have to see the difference between the way their lives were in the beginning and what's there now. It's night and day. I saw the amazing transformation of these villages in photos, and I was just so greatly impressed. From a place of abject poverty, in houses of mud and stick, with thatched roofs, inhabited by malnourished people, we now see sturdy block homes, a large community center, a parish, and a school teeming with healthy and very happy people who fully enjoy the fruits of their labor. I have been deeply moved by the kindness, sincerity, and Abrahamic hospitality shown by our hosts. If I learn nothing else, it is that these people are truly genuine in their search for orthodoxy. Here is an example of the people praying in one of the little villages. The churches, many of them have dirt floors. The sides of the building are wooden slats separated for circulation of air, sort of like a crate with a wooden dirt floor, streamers coming from the top, but the people are very pious. These are people that are kneeling and praying after chrismations. And in their manner of worship, what did I observe? Their worship is very intense, very ecstatic. They incorporate elements from different traditions of Christianity because that's all they've ever known. There's Orthodoxy, there's Catholicism, there's a kind of an evangelical and at times charismatic type of piety that is manifested. And the blend of musical instruments, hand clapping, repeating of Amen's locally composed hymns, prayers for healing and requests for lay-inspired messages from God were reminiscent at times of a revival meeting. That's how excited they get. But the most striking aspect of my interaction with these people is the powerful manifestation of an intense faith. It seems to take them to higher levels of worship. They pray with a simple and rare fervor that finds expression in concrete action. One recent example comes to mind. Visitors from a Mayan village came to our seminary for confession and the liturgy. They traveled that morning to get there to see us 5 hours. Men, women, children, grandparents, and they arrived at the seminary because we would have liturgy that morning. And they wanted to come for confession first. And then they wanted to receive communion. And everything was done with the utmost dignity and piety. And then they got in their cars and went back to 5 hours in order to return to their village. This is a picture of the catechists, some of the catechists. The catechists, I feel, together with the clergy, but especially these catechists, are a remarkable breed of people. There are about 500 of them. They are the teachers and the spiritual leaders in the villages. Because if you only have 8 priests, you can't be at the church every week. The priests go on itinerant preaching. But the catechists run the church's services during the time that the priests are available. And what we need to realize is that they meet every 2 months, the catechists. They come from long distances. They travel for many hours. They could pay as much as $50 to pay for their passage to come to our mission center. $50 is a month's salary. I don't know if I would give up a month's salary to go to a meeting once every 2 months. They come with their children. They're remarkable people. And they sleep on the ground of the large building in which the teaching is done, because there are no quarters for them to sleep. There's no Marriott hotel there. Not even a Super Motel 8 or whatever. The floor, and they carry their own bedding. They carry what they're going to sleep on with them. And these are 3 of the women. They are really very impressive, and one of the gentlemen, again, you see the typical dress that's customary for these people. While we were there at this particular time, we lost power, which is a common occurrence in Guatemala. It was a heavy rainstorm. We couldn't draw water. The rain was hitting the tin roof so hard that we couldn't hear the speaker. And Father Andres has a very loud voice, but the rain even drowned him out, which is kind of hard to do. Right, Father?
I'm very quiet.
But that was normal for them. They didn't even blink their eyes. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we don't have power. We can't get water. We can't take a bath. What are we going to do? They don't even think about it. It's like nothing. These are the people that I am working with, my brothers and sisters in Christ. I'm so happy that you're here tonight. These are the people I'm working with. These are Father's people. I'm hoping that they will be your people. They love Christ. They love the church, or the little that they know of it at this time, but they are eager to learn. And I am there to show them that the Orthodox Church cares. Jesus said, I have other sheep that are not of this fold, and I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. John 10:16. This is the prayer of Jesus. We're finding a whole church in the mountains of Guatemala, in the most remote places. There are many Christs being preached in Guatemala today. Many sects have invaded the country and confused the people, whether it be the Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses, or the evangelical Christians. They are being told to abandon traditional Christianity and to do away with the saints, the Virgin Mary, the sacraments, and the priesthood. We are there to guide them back into the fold of the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. We are there to bring them home into the one fold established by Jesus. Little by little, one step at a time, we are introducing icons into the parishes. We are telling them that the Panagia is the mother of all Christians. And we are teaching them the liturgy, to the priests so that they can teach their people. We are also trying to lead young men and women to further service of the church, but especially the men, into the priesthood, as this is the #1 need of the parishes. I am also working closely with OCMC, Orthodox Christian Mission Center, for the sending of mission teams, some to teach, some to build, some to offer medical assistance, which is a critical need. Presbytera Alexandra has started sewing classes in Guatemala to teach the making of vestments, cassocks, chalice covers, altar cloths, drawing on students from the village. This is a great moment for the Orthodox Church, as Archbishop Atinagoras has repeatedly stated. But the man cannot do it by himself. He's in charge of 20 countries. Guatemala should have its own bishop living in Guatemala. It's too much to have somebody in a distant place to come once every 2 years. We've had one visit already. We were very blessed by the visit, but it's not enough. The entire church must get behind the effort to incorporate the fledgling but very vibrant Guatemalan Orthodox Church into the fold. They are looking to us to share the faith with them, to know that we are really their brothers and sisters in Christ. In this spirit of fellowship, Metropolitan Atinagoras of Mexico, an exarch of the Ecumenical Patriarch, initiated a 2-week whirlwind tour of his scattered Guatemalan flock. Wherever we went with him, he was met by throngs of enthusiastic faithful. Not 10 or 20 or 50, thousands. Thousands. In a welcome not unlike that given to Jesus on Palm Sunday, he was eagerly greeted a few miles, as we said before, by caravans to escort him to these villages. Indeed, the presence of a hierarch gave apostolic legitimacy. But in order to get to the places where these people lived, and this is not a bad slide, this is what the roads are like. I have to tell you where these priests have to go. We travel hours to get to church, to go to a village, and find all these people waiting for us. This is a trip we are taking through the mountains to a village in Mexico, right on the border with Guatemala, Toquian. It's a tiny border town perched high up in the verdant but steep mountain range that divides northern Guatemala from southern Mexico. And after many hours of travel along a narrow, fog-covered road, prone to rock slides, we reached the shrouded heights upon which the village majestically rested. Like Elijah on Horeb, or Moses on Sinai, we had ascended the holy mountain to listen to the voice of God. And he spoke to us through the sad lament of the people who had not tasted the sacraments for 20 years because they had been abandoned by their stepmother, the Catholic Church. But they were looking for their mother, the Orthodox Church. Left to their own devices during this time of exile, they pulled together as a community, drawing on whatever spiritual resources they could muster. And now in the person of the Archbishop and Father Andres Giron, they found the leadership and the Father that they would finally lift, who would finally lift their weighty penance with his comforting message of love and acceptance. Those of us here in Boston and other parts of the United States and in the Orthodox world, we are accustomed to having the visit of a hierarch. For us, it's no big thing. They come and go here frequently. So it's an ordinary occurrence. They have a saying in Guatemala, when something is very rare, the equivalent of our expression of once in a blue moon, they have a saying in Guatemala, como la visita del obispo, like the visit of a bishop. So if you say once in a blue moon there, you say, oh, it's como la visita del obispo. So when an obispo finally comes, oh, it's like the parousia of Christ. Unbelievable. And the people wept openly and unashamedly when they saw a bishop who lifted their penance in their exile and told them they were acceptable. They could come to the church, that he would be their father. Father Andres prepared the way and very humbly stood aside so that the Archbishop could shine. Although I have to give a little side story, a little humor too. We wanted to make sure that the Archbishop saw the hard parts of the life in Guatemala, so he kept telling me, I'm going to make him sweat. I'm going to make him sweat. He wanted him to see what we were living, the reality, so the people of the Synod in Constantinople would understand, this is the mission. This is where the church is. It's not in these places that, you know, with the great cathedrals and all the conveniences of life. This is where we're supposed to be, my goodness. But unfortunately, the one that really sweated was me. I was the one that paid the price. Because we would go to some totally inaccessible places. One time we traveled 7 hours through the mountains. We left at 5 in the morning from one town. We got to the other place, and the people were all waiting for us. And it was in the afternoon to do the liturgy. It was incredible. And we went into the church, and we had to, not only did we have to confirm people, we had to hear their confessions first. And their confessions are very unusual there. Experiences. Normally the women don't talk to men. They're very reserved. But I saw a big line for Father for confession, and I felt bad for him. Well, my Spanish is not great, but I can get by. So I said, Father, do you want me to take some of the customers you know for you? So he said, okay. So a new line formed for me. But you have to see, the women that don't talk to the men, when they come for confession, it's a different story. The floodgates open up, the tears flow. And when they confess there, it's not like one person here and one person there with the icon. They put their arms around you and they whisper in your ear. It's incredible. So I'm listening. Held like this, and it's, my goodness. But the confessions were powerful. Powerful confessions. Metania, real Metania. They were waiting just to open up. And it was a beautiful experience. It really was. It was very, very touching. I was touched. You can see why I feel the way that I do. I'd like to go back, and I'm going to go back. And we like to be with these people. They need us. So hopefully from among some of us here, we'll have more. Father is extending the hand of welcome to anyone who would like to come and offer something. Please. Among our many aspects of our welcome, there's always a band. Wherever you go, and they're playing. This is a marimba band. And they're honoring the Archbishop and playing their music. They're very musical people. In Samaria, upon seeing the multitudes coming to him, Jesus told his disciples, I sent you to reap that for which you have not labored. Others have labored, and you have entered their labors. Such has been my experience while observing the vibrant worship and childlike faith of these people. While by Orthodox standards, some of their practices are misguided, there is never any doubt about their deep religiosity. I saw this over and over again in the way that they pray, in the way they take turns to read psalms in front of the church during the day, in the way they come and receive the Eucharist. These are the things that move me greatly. Here is a picture of the catechists, the foot soldiers of Christ. You see Archbishop Athenagoras, some of the clergy of the Metropolitan of Athenagoras, with the catechists in their traditional outfits. Byzantium and Maya together. Look at that picture. That's another icon. This is what the church is all about. Why do we want to impose our ethnicity on other people? They have a beautiful ethnicity. They have beautiful customs. They love Christ. Surely we can accommodate our ways and blend them with their ways and come up with a beautiful symphony of orthodoxia in these countries and in these lands. Surely, my people, we can do this. So we have, really, I'm respecting the impressive strides that have already been made. We need to begin with the leaders of the church and helping them to learn more about our faith, to live and to internalize the mindset of the Orthodox Church so that the catechists can gradually commit this and transmit it to their own people. This will no doubt be a process that will take many years. What I saw in Guatemala was not unlike what I experienced as a mission priest in East Africa. There I saw people who were eager to learn, but woefully lacking in resources, education, and vibrant examples of orthodoxy in practice. The conversion of Samaria to Christianity all began with a conversation between Jesus and the woman of Samaria over a drink of water. The mass movement of a sizable church group to orthodoxy in Guatemala has similar humble origins in the contacts made with the community of orphans. We never know how God will work in our lives. These contacts eventually have taken us to the more remote places of Guatemala, places not easily found on the coordinates of a map. Here is a typical parish. This is a cathedral of the poor, I call it. This is their cathedral. Dirt floors, wooden structures, and that's the, you have to walk up that little muddy kind of path to get into the church. The experience of worshiping with the indigenous people in their small churches made of baked mud and clay or wooden planks, it defies description. These are, as we said, the cathedrals of the poor, every bit as magnificent as the hallowed shrines of orthodoxy in the great centers of the world. What a great mystery our faith contains. In the least likely places, the bliss of paradise comes upon the humble of heart. On a recent visit to a parish like this, called San Miguel. Such a world of infinite possibilities and promise unfolded before us as we chrismated 37 people. But as we said, not before hearing all of their confessions. So this gives you a little feel of what our life is there. And it's hard to find these places and to get to them. These are the people praying. And this is the last scene, a typical welcome in a village. So that's Guatemala. And this is what we do. We have to support this man. He can't do it by himself. He's getting old.
You bet. You cannot imagine how I feel about John. He became my brother, my friend, my mother, and my father. Honest to God, this man has pushed me to be the way I am today. Thank you, John, for your care. There are people who really love people. And John is one of us. He is un guatemalteco más. You are part of our life, John. Thank you for being so good to us. You know, I will experience a little bit, not only about some things that I want to say before we close these things. Why one day I became a priest. I was a Christian brother. I studied in Memphis, Tennessee, and I got my master's degree there. And one day, a friend of mine who was a priest invited me to go to help him in Holy Week. And I was a religious man, but not a priest. In my country, when it's Holy Week, people tend to bring flowers and they crucify Jesus in the middle of the churches. It's a very powerful scene. So I came up and said, well, I'm going to help this guy to give the Holy Communion. And I was watching the whole spectacular. The cross was really beautiful, and Jesus was crucified. But down into the earth, next to the cross, there was a lady, beautiful lady, especially Indian lady, with the bosom giving milk to a little kid who had that big the head was so huge, hydrocephalia.
Hydrocephalic.
And the kid smiled at me. And that changed my life. Total. I started screaming, crying, and I kneel down and I say, my God, what do you want me to be? And here I am. I'm very proud of being a priest. Extremely proud. I love it. I am going to give my life to my priesthood and bring the Holy Father and the Holy Spirit and Jesus Christ into their midst. It's really worthwhile. It's the best thing I ever done in my life. Honest to God. And the ones who are going to be a priest, grab Jesus. Let him get into your heart. Try. So hard, but so good. So I ask God, thank you for giving me the opportunity of not being the leader of the house, of those people. But thank God for they invite me into their midst. And I am part of them as they are part of me. They're really part. There was a seminarian asking me, what do you need? I need you. I need your conscience. That there are some people in the farthest places in the jungle of my country who do believe in the real mother, the Orthodox Church, that I'm proud now to preside, and I'm happy to be in. People ask me to give you some stories. There are too many stories with me. But the best story that I ever had, I saw a smile of a little hydrocephalic boy who maybe he's already dead. But he gave me so much life. You cannot imagine. You cannot imagine. He gave me power. He gave me power. I saw Jesus in his eyes and his huge head. And I say, my God, I will do whatever you want me to do and do it. You have to be enamorado de Cristo.
You have to be in love with Jesus.
God, you have to love him. You have to feel him, that he's there. I am sick. My arms, my hands are not too good. They are beginning to be a little. But this is my hands. They're crooked. They're not as good as I used to, but are the hands of Jesus, and I want to give it to them. The way he gave his hands and his body to free me from sin. To free me. I'm challenging you not to give you we didn't come to ask you for money, but I came to ask you to be conscious that Indians, Negroes, Tanzanians, Guatemaltecos, we are all brothers, and we must be the keeper of my brother. If we don't have that mentality, we break the unity of the church. We really break that unity. I want to spread my thanks because thank you for bringing me here. You cannot imagine, I think you gave me more than what I gave you. But I love this place and I discovered holiness in this place. Keep it up. Keep being next to Jesus. If you have Jesus, you have everything. If you have Jesus, nothing is going to lack from your life. If you have Jesus, then every time you touch, every time you speak, every time you breathe, every time you bless, is from Him to liberate people. And I think it's worthwhile to live in those, my final days. But I want to live it fully. Not next to Jesus, but with me. In me. Forever. Hallelujah. So I thank you for your kindness. I felt that I am at home. Thank you for the seminarians. Emmanuel, you gave me your hand for bringing me to the dining room when I just couldn't walk. That's very meaningful to me. You touched me too. Through you, Jesus touched me. They gave me life. So you have a lot to give. Be next to Jesus. Try to live Jesus. And say, as Paul said one time, he is not, I am not living anymore. He is living in me. And what I say, what I do, what I touch is His touch. Is His say. And He is my Lord. May God bless you all and thank you for listening.